Ooh, this dungeon is pretty dark and scary, but luckily I've got a torch. Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. Doing another D&D video, and this one's going to be kind of an experiment. I'm talking about torches. Now, torches are something that you always see in a lot of movies, a lot of video games. They're kind of the one thing you always carry with you if you're going into a dungeon like I am right now. But I remember watching, when I did my Backscabbard video, I mentioned how Shadiversity is a really good YouTube channel that talks about what was accurate, what really happened in history, and he goes into a lot of things that are in video games, movies, and Dungeons & Dragons itself. And he did a whole episode about the torch, and he said, you know what, it's great that people think people wandered around with torches into a dungeon and did all their adventures and carried a few extra sticks like this with them, but in reality, torches were not that efficient or practical. They were good for maybe 10 minutes to half an hour at best, and I always had visions of like, well, okay, I'll carry 5 or 6 in my backpack. And you think 5 or 6 sticks like this, it's going to take up a lot of room. And if you're only getting a couple hours worth of work out of that, like, why would you even bother? Like, it's not actually something that you would have seen real adventurers in a scenario like that, a Lord of the Rings or a Game of Thrones situation. Yeah, you would use a torch very quickly as like a brief flashlight. Oh, I got to go get something from the cellar. Or, hey, there's something in the barn, careful around the hay. But you're not really going to see torches used as often as we used to think they were. They were the cheap alternatives, only a few copper pieces for a piece of, well, basically a stick with a rag on the top of it. Compared to what Shadiversity says they did use in history, which were candles and lanterns. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to experiment. I want to see, I remember in Dungeons & Dragons, the old rule books had different details, and depending on the edition you're playing, you could see a certain distance with either a candle, a torch, or a lantern. And I want to try that out and just see how far I can see in real life, but I'm not going to set my house on fire, so I'm not going to actually use a torch. I am going to use a candle, much safer, and something like a lantern, which should theoretically blow everything out of proportion. So, that's what this video is. It's a little experiment. How inefficient is the torch really? Let's have a look. Now, the plan is, I'm going to do different distances, and I'm going to hold up 2 light sources, already mentioned, to see just how well I can see you. Now, the original D&D rules said that a torch could cast a radius of light of 40 feet, and I do have about that much to play with, but I don't have a torch to play with, at least I'm not going to. So my alternatives, as mentioned, are I'm going to use a candle, which should be pretty pathetic. Now, there are no actual rules in the original D&D setup for how far a candle is. There is in the later rules, but we'll get to that. So I am going to use a candle, and my alternative, a lantern. Now, I've only got a modern-day lantern here, and I guess that would be the equivalent of a hooded lantern, and they apparently had a 30-foot radius, so slightly worse than a torch, which I think is kind of odd. So what I'm going to be curious about is if I turn this on, can I see 30 feet? Now, because this is a modern lantern, and so therefore super bright, and actually kind of ghostly looking with that color, I figured this is actually more like a spell kind of a light. The light spell had a 20-foot radius, actually worse than both lantern and torch. So does this, when I turn this on, does this have even better than what the lantern would do, or is it even worse, the hooded lantern? We'll find out. Now that's first edition rules. By the time second edition came along, or 5th edition came along, candles did have a write-up. Apparently, they have a 5-foot radius that they can see, and they added this idea of like, then a dimmer radius beyond, so you can kind of see close up. You could read text or whatever, but you could make out shadows in the distance, that kind of thing. So this has a 5-foot radius of light, followed by another 5-foot radius of you can barely see it, dim light. Similarly, same with torches, they had a 20-foot radius of what you could see, with another 20-foot radius of barely seeing in the shadows. So that's kind of be the the book or the benchmark that we're trying to get to, my hooded lantern, according to modern rules, again has a 30-foot radius, but now a 30-foot radius beyond that of kind of dim, I can barely make it out in the shadows kind of thing. Or, if we do our light spell, 20-foot radius with another 20-foot radius beyond that. So, my question is going to be, with these things in my hand, can I see you guys? Now, my plan is, I'm going to put the camera really far away, and I'm going to walk toward you in the dark. You probably won't see diddly squat. But my question is, can I see the camera? And then use that as like, okay, I'm 5 feet away, I'm 20 feet away, that type of thing. Let's find out. Again, I'm going to put a link below to Shadiversity's video on torches because they're really interesting. But let's see how this goes. Now this would be an interesting test. This is me with the candle really far away. I am currently 40 feet away from you, and it's true. I can't see the camera at all. So I'm now going to move 30 feet up. This is probably extremely dark, and I don't know how well my camera is going to pick it up. The purpose of this filming is not to see how it looks on camera. It's more, can I see the camera? So it really isn't related. Where in the heck is it? Okay, well, I can make out details. I can make out this painting on the wall here. Coming up to 20 feet now. And no, okay. I can only make out the camera because there is a set of Venetian blinds behind it, and I can see the silhouette. I do not actually see the camera. In fact, I can't even see the walls, any of the details of the walls. So this is at 20 feet. So the 5 feet being able to view and then 5 feet sort of dark beyond is true so far. Let's go another 10 feet. And I should be, I'm hoping I'm visible to you. I am now only 10 feet away from the camera, and okay, yes, I can probably make it out now. So yes, the camera is visible at 10 feet. Would I say there's that 5 foot distance? Yes, I would say what I can see is maybe 5 feet, maybe, but definitely I'd have to be, man, I'd have to be really a much better light source than this. So let's come up even closer, and we will hope, let's see if I'm even in frame. I don't know if you can even see me. Yeah, okay, so there's me, and I'm now within a few feet of the camera. I'm guessing you can see me, but man, that is true. The candle is extremely dark. All right. And now I'm using the lantern, and okay, it's a modern lantern, but I'm curious if it's more like an actual hooded lantern for visibility, or if it's like the light spell. If it's like the hooded lantern, 30 feet I should be able to see the camera. I'm at 40 right now, can't see the camera, but at 20 it would be like a light spell. So I'm at 40, can't really see you. Gonna move up to the 30 mark, which is here. Oh, I can kind of make you out. Actually, this is the 30 feet. You know what? The lantern is correct. I can kind of make out where you are. Okay, so let's go up to 20. Now this would be where the light spell kicks in, and honestly, yeah, I'm definitely able to see. In fact, I can even make out the shadow of these little bits of the lantern on the walls around you. So 20 feet, definitely, I can see quite clearly what's going on in the room. So the torch, theoretically, would be even better than that. I don't know that that's true, because this is really bright. Brighter than I would think a lantern would be, or sorry, a torch. So they're saying it's going to be like back at the original first position where I couldn't even make you out. I find that surprising. All right, well, let's move all the way up just so that you can see me. I'll be careful of the table again. And yeah, here we are. I am using my lantern, and it's been an interesting little test. So definitely a lantern will work at 20 feet. Or sorry, a light spell. This is not the equivalent of a light spell. In fact, this is brighter than a light spell. that would be 20 feet. As an equivalent to a hooded lantern, this is correct. At the 30-foot mark, I could see you. Interesting. Now the torch would be 40. Again, I'm doubtful of that. Maybe, now there were changes. Like I say, with 5th edition, they changed it back to 20. So maybe that 40 was actually 20 plus 20? I don't know. But yeah, okay, so lantern is correct and candle is correct. Huh. Well, no surprise there. The candle was not very good. Not for long distance. Fine up close, but yeah, I pretty much figured that wasn't going to work. The lantern, though, yeah, that pretty much blew everything out of the water. I can imagine that a real medieval lantern, which unfortunately I don't own, as I say, that is probably close, and so therefore, yeah, it would just make sense for long trips into the dungeon. That's what you're going to use. The torch, I'm going to go with Shadiversity. It was probably closer to a candle, and therefore not really that great for use, for visibility down there. All right, well, experiment over. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.